What do you know? Recording has started. So hopefully it'll do 2 recordings. I believe it should. So, all right. Successors and predecessors. I'll share screen again. Okay. Heidi, do you have a specific question, or do you want me just to talk through and give some examples of how you set up a successor or a predecessor?
If you could do some, I'm trying to think of a specific example, but what I can tell you I always run into that's confusing for me is that I don't fully understand. So I know there's the different types of relationships when doing predecessors and successors, and understanding how P6 applies them all, and thinking that I've got it right, and then I hit my schedule button and it messes up everything I just did. So
yeah, okay. I'm going to open one of my sandbox projects and we'll just play around in that. Okay, so that people are somewhat familiar, this is the same project we were just working in, FMA 652. Let's see. I'm going to add, just so we can have a little more clarity in here, we've got a product procurement activity for 2023 that has already started, but has not yet finished. It's ongoing. And we've got a 2024 activity that has not started nor finished. But just for a little more clarity's sake, I'm gonna actually add one more activity for 2025 product procurement. We can play around with that. So to do that, it's pretty simple. You copy and then you right click, and you can see how these are following the work breakdown structure of planning activities, product procurement activities, construction activities. I want to paste it in the same segment or section that I copied it in. Typically, you want to. If I paste it down here, then it will put it under a different WBS, work breakdown structure code. But since it's a procurement activity, I want to keep it in that same group. I'm going to paste it in here. And it's going to ask me everything that I want to be everything that I want to copy. I want to say yes. I'm going to copy everything. It'll ask me about the activity IDs. P6 is somewhat intuitive, fairly intuitive when it comes to activity IDs. In larger schedules, activity IDs can be pretty critical. In the kind of more general schedules that we work in, that most of us work in, the activity IDs aren't probably paid attention to as much, but it gives you the ability to actually name them in different ways. And the generic way that it does it is it just adds a value of 10 to the last activity that was scheduled, and then gives you that number. And I'll show you what that looks like. So we're just going to leave it on the default increment activity ID based on select activities with an increment of 10. I click OK. It's going to paste that new activity in here. You can see it's titled exactly the same, 2024 product procurement. That's because I just copied an activity and I pasted it. So the first thing I'm going to do is rename this so I can remember, what activity I'm actually creating. You'll notice that everything else is the same here. The resources are the same as the one above. The remaining duration is the same as the one above. The start date is exactly the same. Finish date is exactly the same. So it copies all of that information except for the activity ID in this first column. The activity ID up above was 1190. The activity of the one that we just pasted is 1210. And that's because the highest value on the activity ID in the schedule prior to that creation of my new activity was 1200. So it added an increment of 10 onto this 1200 and gave me 1210 automatically.
So it allows me to see the order in which activities were put into the project.
Correct. That has some use. I mean, you could imagine like, I can go back through and kind of sequence wise, I can see how people added these. But there's some instances where you might want to be like, well, I actually just realized that I have an activity that needs to come in between these two activities. And I want to kind of I want to use my activity IDs to keep things orderly. So I can go in here and I could actually change this and say, oh, I actually want this to be 1185, and it would let me do that. If I try to do 1180, you can see up above here, 1180 already exists. If I type in an 1180 and hit enter, it won't accept that value because it's not unique. So activity IDs are super critical in P6 because that's the identification that it uses to make sure that it's sequencing correctly, and every activity has to have a unique ID. Okay, so that was a little bonus info on adding activities in a real simple way, just copying, pasting, because a lot of the information I want the same. I want the same resources on it. Duration, I'm going to leave the same. And now, Heidi, we're going to get into the fun part that you asked about. We're going to add a relationship to this one right here. So you'll notice if I click on the original activity that we copied, it has both a predecessor on the left down here and a successor on the bottom right. So previous to this, I had gone in and said what this predecessor is, the preceding activity, and what the successor is. Those don't get copied in P6 unless you're copying multiple activities, copying and pasting multiple activities together. So if I'd gone like this and I'd selected all 4 of these activities and copied and pasted them, then it would also remember the logic, the predecessors and successors between the activities that you're copying, and it would retain that information. But where I only copied one and pasted one, it doesn't retain any predecessor, successor information because it doesn't know how it fits in with the rest of the activities in the schedule. So let's just go like this and say, we'll take a look back at 2024 product procurement and see what its predecessor is. Its predecessor is 2024 planning and scoping. Oh, I've got a problem now because I don't have a 2025 planning and scoping. And if I want my relationships to stay the same, I probably need to add that. So I'm just going to add it really quick. Same process we just went through. Now I've got my new activity in there. I'm going to rename it really quick, 2025 planning and scoping. And now I can go in here to my product procurement and I can assign a predecessor. So it pulls up this dialog box. It shows me all the activities in the schedule that I can choose as a predecessor. If I have hundreds of activities or lots of activities, you can actually go in here and you can start to type in this filter at the top, and it will show you only the activities that have whatever word you're searching. So if I want to find construction activities and I know it's called construction, I can start typing that. If I want to find procurement activities, you get the picture there. So we want to use, just so I'm preserving the relationships and the way that it was scheduled before, I'm going to grab this 2025 planning and scoping, and I'm going to add that as my predecessor to the product procurement activity. So I click the add button over here, and you'll see that it's down here now in my list of predecessors, 2025 planning and scoping.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How do I get that dialog box down below that says that shows the relationships?
Oh, you're in a different view.
Oh, I'm not in the.
So go to your layout, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, click on that.
For the.
On the top menu, go to open. It's going to ask if you want to save. I would just say no unless you made some intentional change.
That's the.
And then scroll down to imps.
Imps.
That's PM. Yeah. Heidi, since you asked specifically, do you follow that so far, right? Or do
Yes,
you?
yes, I do.
Okay.
Is there, so what is it, and I've not I can't think of the exact example, so I'm sorry if I don't
No problem.
eloquently articulate this, but there's some point when you're putting in a schedule that it comes in, that it pops up with something that says you must have a constraint to do this or something like that. And the constraint can either be, trying to remember now, dang it. Sorry, I can't log into mine still, so I'm not sure how to like trigger
No
it to
problem.
show you. But basically, Tori had told me a way around the constraint was by setting a successor or predecessor relationship. But then there's the different types of relationships. And I know there's like a start, a finish, a start, finish, and a finish, like all of that different stuff. And I'm not sure how to judge when the applicable time, like some of them kind of make sense. Like
Yeah.
design is going to come before construct. But like there's some of these things that I just don't know how to rely on those how to know which relationship to rely on and make sure I'm setting it correctly.
Totally. So you said you use the word constraint. I'm going to jump over to our activity status. So if you follow my cursor, the activity status menu here at the bottom is going to give you an area that's called constraints down here. And perhaps Tori uses them in a different way. P6, I mean, there's tons of ways to do everything. So everyone has their own methodology. For me, I try to stay away from using constraints as much as possible, because once you start using constraints, you have to remember why you put that constraint in there. And you got to remember to adjust it also if you need to. So constraints can be useful to say there's a certain date that this activity has to start on. It has to start on June 1st because that's when we can close the track for the weekend. So I got to make sure that it starts on June 1st. One effective way to do that is to come in here and pick your constraint, and you can say start on or after, start on or before, start on, mandatory start, mandatory finish. So I typically would come in here and I would click on start on, and I would jump in here and I would say that has to start on June 1st if that happens to be that date. So that's the value and the use of constraints. The challenge or the drawback of using constraints is it does not allow the logic of the schedule to adjust if you do want to shift your schedule. So Heidi, some of these instances might be cases where you're like, yes, I need to use a constraint, and this is why. I try to stay away from constraints as much as possible. As best as I can, I will use the relationships, and what you're mentioning is the relationship type here can be changed. So finish to finish, what finish to finish means is this activity that I'm looking at, it has to finish in relationship to the activity before it. So 2025 product procurement is the activity we have highlighted up above. I'm telling it that it needs to have a finish to finish relationship with 2025 planning and scoping, which is up here. And what that means is if I put that logic in here, the finish date of my planning and scoping activity will not ever come before the finish date of my, sorry, I said that incorrectly. The finish date of my product procurement activity will not ever come before the finish date of my planning and scoping activity if I set up that relationship. And what that might look like is, let's say I'm building a driveway that attaches to a sidewalk. The sidewalk can come through, but I can't actually tie my driveway into the sidewalk until the sidewalk is in place. So I've got a 10-day sidewalk activity that's coming through. I've got a driveway activity that started also a while ago, but it can't finish until my sidewalk is past it. So it can finish theoretically one day, and then I can come in here and I can say, okay, I want my driveway activity to finish, and I'd use a lag here, one day after my sidewalk activity. It didn't, I'll say 1 week just so you can see what that looks like. So now when P6 schedules this schedule, it will look at the finish date of the planning and scoping, AKA sidewalk activity, and it will schedule product procurement, AKA my driveway activity, to finish 5 days after, or 1 week after my planning and scoping activity. So that's a finish to finish relationship. Is that what you're asking? Do you want me to go through the other ones and talk to them, or what's the most helpful for you, Heidi?
That was exactly what I was looking for, and that made perfect sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just see. So there's finish to finish, finish to start, start to finish, start to start. And I think I understand. Yeah, I think that does make a lot more sense. I have a feeling I'm going to struggle to remember it in practical application the next time I need to, but it's definitely helpful to see you do it this way.
Okay.
Thank
Dave
you.
just asked if I can talk to the other one, so I'll do that
Yeah.
quickly. Finish to start is the most common relationship when it comes to predecessors. And what finish to start means, sorry, I said that incorrectly. Boy. I'm just adding another one to, I'm sorry. Man, forgive me for mixing up my language. Finish to start is the most common relationship type for a predecessor. And what it means is the finish of the previous activity has to happen before the start of this activity. So in this case, we'll jump back down here to the product procurement, and let's just play with these for a minute. I'm going to say this one has a finish to start relationship. And then I'm going to jump up here and I'm going to schedule it. And you're going to see, well, before I do that, I'll point out over here, see how these two activities are right in line with each other? They've got the same start date as of right now, because we haven't told P6 to schedule them in relationship to each other. But if I add this predecessor and say finish to start, and then I schedule it, I'm just keeping my same date for now because we're just playing around. What's going to happen is it's going to reschedule the logic so that this 2025 product procurement now starts after 2025 planning and scoping finishes. Did I put a lag in there? Oh, I did. I put a lag of 1 week in there. So you can see 2025 planning and scoping is the predecessor. If I jump up here and look at it in the actual schedule, that finishes on the 26th of April over here. And this activity starts on the 6th of May, so 1 week after that one finishes. That's because I put a lag in here of 1 week and the finish to start relationship.
You might have covered this before.
Yeah.
I'm working to
All good.
keep up. So if you set this up.
Yeah.
With this relationship.
Yeah.
Which creates the predecessor relationship here. Does it auto generate the successor relationship?
It does.
There? Okay.
Correct. So, and another handy thing is when you're playing around in these, if I jump in here and this has a successor of 2024 product procurement, if I hit this button down here, the go to button, it will automatically jump my active activity to that one. So up here, you'll see this one's highlighted blue. I hit the go to. Now it's jumped down here to what that predecessor was.
All right, great.
And you can see it shows it as a predecessor here. If I go backwards now, it's going to jump back up to what the predecessor was up there. So that's a pretty handy button to know, this go to button. It'll toggle you back and forth in between your successors and predecessors.
Okay, great.
Okay, so we talked to finish to start. Start to start, I find useful It's probably for me, it's the second most useful. And you can see, like in this instance down here, my product procurement. This is my actual existing relationship in the schedule we updated. My product procurement starts on 18th of March, and it has a successor, so the follow-on activity of 2024 construction. And I've got a start-to-start relationship of 4 weeks. What that means in real time in the UTA world is I have noticed in my procurement activities, we submit a requisition, it gets approved. It can take approximately 4 weeks before that requisition gets issued as a PO and rolled as an obligation, and then I can start to work on it. So just in my rough observations in the FMA environment, we program the start of a construction activity about 4 weeks after the procurement has started.
It's over 200,000, then add another 8.
Yep, exactly. Something like that. So these are kind of group activities also, I should say that, because typically procurement and construction are going to have a finish to start relationship. You're going to finish the procurement and then you're going to start the construction of that individual item. But in the FMA environment, our procurement activity includes about 30 individual construction items. And so the earliest construction item starts about 4 weeks after procurement has started, because that's when we'll get the first one done and through the procurement process. And then they'll follow on after that. Did that make sense? No?
I don't know, because I started thinking of another question as we were talking. Did you have, well, sorry, I'll let other people answer whether that means something.
Real quick, it's 4:35. If anyone wants to jump off, you're welcome to. I'm happy to keep talking. I've got time until 5 o'clock still, but we can bail out of this anytime we want to.
And you have successors and predecessors that jump projects.
You mean relate them between two products?
Yes.
You can't. It gets complex because you would need to open both projects. You need to build out the logic between those two projects, and then you would need to schedule both of those projects together.
Yeah.
And anytime you want to update that one, you got to make sure you've got both projects open to be able to keep those relationships live.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
But if Stacy Whitbeck is working on X grade crossing and they need to finish that grade crossing before they move on to the next grade crossing, and you're going to that degree of detail, then that would potentially be a predecessor successor relationship.
You could.
Okay.
Yeah. Correct.
I'm not going to do that, but hypothetically speaking.
Yeah. So we talked to finish. We talked to finish to start. We talked to start to start. A start to finish predecessor means my current activity, so product procurement, the predecessor, which is planning and scoping, it can't finish until the current activity that I'm on has started. So that's a little bit confusing, but if I can think of an example, let's say, go back to the driveway and the sidewalk. Let's say that my sidewalk, for some reason, can't finish until my driveway has started. So the sidewalk is going along, it's doing just great, but my driveway hasn't started yet, and my sidewalk can't finish until it does. So I'm waiting. Now my driveway finishes, and my sidewalk can finish 2 days after that because I have to tie it in some certain way to the driveway. So you can tell P6, don't let that previous activity finish until my current activity has started, which is the least common relationship that I've used, but can be useful in some instances. Mm-hmm. Those are the 4 relationship types, Heidi. The other thing to note is your lags can be positive or negative. And now I'm blowing your mind. potentially. But the most common for me, the most common time lag that I use is a positive lag, meaning like for the one that we did up here. That's not the one that I wanted. My construction activity has a 4-week lag time start to start. So it starts 4 weeks after its predecessor has started. But I could make this a negative 2 weeks, and then it would say my 2024 product procurement starts 2 weeks before its predecessor starts, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
I was just gonna ask if that would allow you to do that, or whether it's gonna pop up an error when you try and schedule it.
It will allow you to do it.
It becomes a lead, right, Hans?
It does become a lead. In my opinion, the better way to do that would be to use a start to finish relationship and have a positive lag of 2 weeks. Do you see how those two could be the same?
Right, yes.
Yeah. So,
Which might be what Tori was referring to as in terms of like, you can play around with it
Yeah.
by changing the relationship type,
you can,
and that will
correct.
move the schedule around.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, go ahead, Todd, sorry.
I was just going to say, I was going to throw out, you know, several of us a few years back went to New Orleans for a couple, 2 or 3 days for a couple P6 classes. And I guess the one thing that came out of that, and I'm certainly not an expert, but the one thing that the instructor kind of reiterated both classes was if you can avoid start to finish relationships and leads or negative lags at all costs, please do so. That's where he does a lot of forensics type stuff, and so he's looking at like for delay claims and stuff like that. But that was kind of his he was really preachy about staying away from start to finish relationships if you can, and then also negative lags. He's like both of them are kind of, I guess, for the real professionals in the industry, it's kind of frowned upon, just like constraints. Same thing you talked about with constraints, as much as possible to try to avoid constraints because of what it does to the logic within the overall schedule and how it affects the critical path ultimately.
Yeah, I would totally echo all those, Todd. I try to stay start to finish. I can't think of the last time I actually used that relationship type. And lags, I have used negative lags sometimes, but I agree, I prefer to try to stay away from those. So those are all really good points. To speak to constraints again, really quick, a constraint in here will actually override your schedule logic. So if you've got a relationship in here of a finish to start and a 2-week lag time, so this would mean my product procurement, my 2024 construction activity up here that's highlighted would start 2 weeks after my product procurement finishes. If you had that logic in here, but then you also went in here to this activity and said, I want a constraint of start on, and I'm going to say that's like 2 months down the road, this constraint will override this relationship activity in here. So it's something to watch for. I honestly use constraints as little as possible. And if there is a problem in my schedule, I'm like, why won't this thing schedule like I'm telling it to? Constraints is one of the first places that I'll go look to see if there are any constraints. Interestingly, P6 does help you now in that you can see right here in my start window, there's an asterisk right there.
Mm-hmm.
That asterisk means that there's a hard constraint that has been entered. If I get rid of this constraint, you'll see that asterisk go away. So that's the easy way to go see if you've got any constraints in your schedule, is to look for an asterisk on your start or finish dates. Heidi, did we answer your question or come close to it? Or is there something more about relationships and relationship types or lags that you want to talk to?
No, I think you did great. I really am just, like I said, I think I need to figure out how to be able to practice these. I think I'm going to try and make it a goal to be updating schedules a little more than quarterly, just so I can have that tangible experience of getting familiar with how to do these things.
Yeah, I would echo that completely. I'm sure Todd can echo it from when they did their training. The more you do it, like doing it once a month or making yourself like at least do one schedule update per month. Maybe you're not doing
Yeah.
all of them, but the frequency of it makes a huge difference in memory retention. In fact, sometimes if I go a long time without scheduling, I'll be like, oh, how did I do that one thing that I used to know how to do?
Yeah, it's use it or lose it for sure, especially with this
Yeah.
program because it's so robust. I mean, the gentleman that taught the classes we attended, basically he was in the P6 environment. He said 4 to 6 hours a day for 15 years.
Whoa.
And so I mean the guy he was a wizard, right? He could troubleshoot. I mean it was pretty
Yeah.
impressive. But that's how, I mean, not that we're ever going to get to that point. I mean, I don't have that many days left to spend that much time, but that's a great point, Heidi. Like, I mean, and I've tried to say that myself is like, you know, even if you're cracking it open like once a week and just kind of, you know, checking out the functionality within your sandbox or wherever, it'll give you definitely a leg up. I mean, if you're gonna do, you might be teaching the class here someday. I don't know, but it is one of those things that's so kind of alien to our, you know, most of us in this group that, and I wish I had more time for it because, quite frankly, of all the project controls tasks, I enjoy scheduling more than anything. It's
God,
pretty.
that's dangerous to say.
I know, but it's pretty fascinating to see how it all works and you know because it's so graphic, right? You know,
Yeah.
it gives you a graphical representation of a project life cycle, which I think is really cool. But yeah, I still got a lot to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoy it too until I get to the points where like I cannot figure this damn thing out, and then I just want to smash my computer.
Exactly. You'd be very frustrated. Or try bouncing back between. Thing that I struggle with is bouncing back between P6 and project, right? Because
Yeah,
it's the same kind of premise, but those platforms handle things much differently between one another. So yeah, trying to get proficient in both is it's a lofty goal, but it's one that I keep putting on my goals every year.
Brilliant. All right. Well, anything else for today then? Great.
Gonna show what it looks
Super
like.
helpful, Hans. Thank you.
Do I want to show
Very.
What it looks like in Procore.
Oh, yeah. So Dave and I
We don't
just
need to go through the step-by-step.
yeah. So you're all aware at the end of last session, Dave started asking some questions about, hey, can we get this thing exported and put it in, see if we can put it into Procore? And we did figure that step out using what's called an XML export, which is one of the file types that you can export to out of out of P6. And so we exported an XML file. We jumped in here to Procore. We went to the project, the corresponding, was it 652?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, 652.
We used Procore Drive.
Yeah, we did use Procore Drive, but you don't have to. You can just drag and drop. But if you go in here to the scheduling tool, which is right here, and you use this upload schedule button right here, it will give you a pop-up window that you can drag and drop a file into, if I remember correctly. Maybe it's this one, upload via browser. I can't remember exactly.
We'll show you.
Yeah, you can drag it in here and then it'll populate your schedule in a graphical way here in P6. So you can see now these are the same schedules. The WBS we didn't really talk to. The task name is the same. Resources are called out, start dates, finish dates, completion. Gives you there's a whole bunch of ways you can customize what you're seeing and not seeing in here, but it's not too far away when we might be able to set up some sort of automated system to populate Procore out of P6. I'm trying to get to the Gantt chart. There we go. So this looks somewhat similar to P6 in the way that it's laid out with the task name, start, finish, duration, percent complete, and schedule over here on the right side.
You can change the view over there in the corner. Order.
Anyway.
Yeah. We can't edit this. ProPort does not allow for schedule editing or updating within the tool itself. It all has to happen within Primavera. But this does allow everyone to see, because not all of us or not everyone that's associated with the project has access to P6. So this allows, again, this maximizes visibility between the groups in those instances where we want that.
Brilliant. Anything else? Happy to answer any more questions. If not, I'll stop recording and we can all go about our merry days.
Thanks again, Hans.